Hi, this is Shannon from No Shelf Control. Thanks for joining me on the channel today. This is the third month in a row that I've gotten the opportunity to bring you the choices from the Book of the Month box. So we did this in January, we did it in February, and now I have the list of books available for selection from the March Book of the Month box. If you remember correctly, in February we had 5 choices. In March we actually have 7. So I think that's exciting, and I think we should get started. The first book that I want to talk about this afternoon is The London Seance Society. That is written by Sarah Penner. And the quick take on that book is from the author of The Lost Apothecary, a gothic fable teeming with mystery and occult forces where none can be trusted. The Book of the Month people say that it has LGBTQ plus themes, that it is an international story. It's a whodunit type of book, and it is very glamorous. So I think that's interesting. The synopsis says 1873, at an abandoned chateau on the outskirts of Paris, a dark seance is about to take place, led by an acclaimed spiritualist, Vaudeline Dallaire. Known worldwide for her talent in conjuring the spirits of murder victims to ascertain the identities of the people who killed them, she is highly sought after by widows and investigators alike. Lena Wicks has come to Paris to find answers about her sister's death, but to do so, she must embrace the unknown and overcome her own logic-driven bias against the occult. When Vaudeline is beckoned to England to solve a high-profile murder, Lena accompanies her as an understudy. But as the women team up with the powerful men of London's exclusive Seance Society to solve the mystery, they begin to suspect that they are not merely out to solve a crime, but perhaps to entangle in one themselves. Okay, so that is interesting. 1873, about the occult and seances and talking to the dead. So I think that's interesting. The next choice that we have is a book called Weyward, and that's W-E-Y-W-A-R-D, Weyward, by Amelia Hart. It is also coming out this month. And the quick take on that book is an ode to the natural world and female power. This lush, generation-spanning novel is equal parts daring and inspiring. And the Book of the Month people say that it's told from multiple viewpoints, which I really like. It's feminist in nature, it's magical, and it has a nature bent to it. So let's read some more about that. The synopsis says, I am a wayward and wild inside. 2019, under cover of darkness, Kate flees London for ramshackle Weyward Cottage, inherited from a great aunt she barely remembers. With its tumbling ivy and overgrown garden, the cottage is worlds away from the abusive partner who tormented Kate. But she begins to suspect that her great aunt had a secret, one that lurks in the bones of the cottage, hidden ever since the witch hunts of the 17th century. 1619, Altha is awaiting trial for the murder of a local farmer who was stampeded to death by his herd. As a girl, Altha's mother taught her the magic, a kind not rooted in spell casting, but in a deep knowledge of the natural world. But unusual women have always been deemed dangerous. And as the evidence for witchcraft is set out against Altha, she knows it will take all of her powers to maintain her freedom. 1942. As World War II rages, Violet is trapped in her family's grand, crumbling estate. Straitjacketed by societal convention, she longs for the robust education her brother receives, and for her mother, long deceased, who was rumored to have gone mad before her death. The only traces Violet has of her are a locket bearing the initial W and the word wayward scratched into the baseboard of her bedroom. Weaving together the stories of 3 extraordinary women across 5 centuries, Amelia Hart's Weyward is an enthralling novel of female resilience and the transformative power of the natural world. Ooh, I like that. The 3 women, 3 different time spans, just waiting to see how they come together. I really am interested in that one. So I hope maybe you have some interest in that one as well. The next one is a thriller, and it's called The Soulmate by Sally Hepworth. I'm sure you've heard of Sally Hepworth. She writes a lot of thrillers. The quick take on this one is when an old acquaintance dies, it dredges up demons of the past that threaten to unravel a seemingly perfect marriage. There's that word seemingly in there. The quick take on this one, as far as the book of the month folks are concerned, is it's a psychological drama. It is sad. It revolves around marriage issues, and it's in a rural setting. So let's read the synopsis. The Soulmate. There's a cottage on a cliff, Gabe and Pippa's dream home in a sleepy coastal town. But their perfect house hides something sinister. The tall cliffs have become a popular spot for people to end their lives. Night after night, Gabe comes to their rescue, literally talking them off the ledge, until he doesn't. When Pippa discovers Gabe knew the victim, the questions spiral. Did the victim jump? Was she pushed? And would Gabe, the love of Pippa's life, her soulmate, lie? As the perfect facade of their marriage begins to crack, the deepest and darkest secrets begin to unravel. That one sounds tense. Okay, so I don't know. That one really intrigues me as well. So he's talking people off of a cliff and then suddenly doesn't one time. And what does that mean? Okay, let's go on to the next one. The next one is historical fiction, and it's called The Last Russian Doll by Kristen Lesch. I believe it's Lesch. It's L-O-E-S-C-H. It could be Loesch. Kristen Lesch we're going with. All right. The quick take on this one is this epic story weaves one family's tragic splintering into the larger tapestry of Russia's turbulent 20th century. It is supposedly an emotional book, revolves around a family drama, has a non-linear timeline, and is about forbidden love. And the synopsis says this: in a faraway kingdom in a long ago land, a young girl lived happily in Moscow with her family, a sister, a father, and an eccentric mother who liked to tell fairy tales and collect porcelain dolls. One summer night, everything changed, and all that remained of that family were the girl and her mother. Now, a decade later and studying at Oxford University, Rosie has an English name, but all she wants is to understand and bury the past. After her mother dies, Rosie returns to Russia, armed with little more than her mother's strange folklore and a single key. What she discovers is a devastating family history that spans the 1917 revolution, the siege of Leningrad, Stalin's purges, and beyond. At the heart of this saga stands a young noblewoman, Tanya, as pretty as a porcelain doll, whose actions and love for an idealistic man will set off a sweeping story that reverberates across the century. So again, we have two timelines, two different people. I believe that the quick notes said it was a non-linear timeline, so it's one of those that's going to go back and forth. I often really enjoy that. Sometimes it can be confusing, but I often really enjoy books that bounce back and forth between timelines. So very interested to see what happens there. Our next book is a debut. Always love a debut. It's contemporary fiction, and it's called Rootless by Crystal Zara Apia. And this one, the quick take says, an unexpected pregnancy pushes a married couple into a raw and emotional exploration of what it is they truly want. It's described as a heavy read with a slow build, revolves around marriage issues and mama drama. Okay. So the synopsis on this one says, on a spring afternoon in London, Sam hops the stairs of his flat 2 at a time. There's £1,300 missing from his and his wife Aoife's shared bank account, and his calls are going straight to voicemail. When he finally reaches someone, he learns Aoife is nearly 5,000 miles away as their toddler looks around and asks, where's mommy? When Aoife and Sam met as teens headed for university, it seemed everyone knew they were meant to be. Aoife, newly arrived in the UK from Ghana and sinking under the weight of her parents' expectations, found comfort in the focused and idealistic Sam. He was stable, working toward a law career, and had an unwavering vision for their future. A vision Aoife, now a decade later, finds slightly insufferable. From the outside, they're the picture-perfect couple everyone imagined, but there are cracks in the frame. When Aoife and Sam are faced with an unplanned pregnancy, they find themselves on opposing sides. Fatherhood is everything he has dreamed of, but Aoife feels stuck in a nightmare. And when a new revelation emerges, they are forced to confront just how radically different they want their lives to be. Already swallowed by the demands of motherhood and feeling the dreams she had slipping away once again, Aoife disappears. Oh, I'm so excited about that one. Reminds me a little bit of Someday Maybe. That was about suicide. This is about disappearance, but it's sort of that relationship that you're looking at and doesn't necessarily match up to the ideas that people have on the outside about it. I loved that book, so I'm really intrigued by this one. That was Rootless by Crystal Zara Apia. Okay, what's the next one? The next one we have is The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi, and this is a fantasy book by Shannon Chakraborty. Again, fantasy, The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi. And the quick take is this swashbuckling pirate captain's last hurrah will have you clutching for your spyglass, ready to hit the high seas. It's 400 plus pages, so it's a big book. Action-packed. It's the first in a series, which is always great if you enjoy it. Then there's always more to come. And it focuses on a quest. And the synopsis says, Amina Al-Sirafi should be content. After a storied and scandalous career as one of the Indian Ocean's most notorious pirates, she survived backstabbing rogues, vengeful merchant princes, several husbands, and one actual demon to retire peacefully with her family to a life of piety, motherhood, and absolutely nothing that hints of the supernatural. But when she's tracked down by the obscenely wealthy mother of a former crewman, she's offered a job no bandit could refuse. Retrieve her comrade's kidnapped daughter for a kingly sum. The chance to have one last adventure with her crew, do right by an old friend, and win a fortune that will secure her family's future forever? It seems like such an obvious choice that it must be God's will. Yet the deeper Amina dives, the more it becomes alarmingly clear there's more to this job, and the girl's disappearance than she was led to believe. For there's always risk in wanting to become a legend, to seize one last chance at glory, to savor just a bit more power, and the price might be your very soul. I don't know that I've ever read a pirate story about a female pirate. I love that. So, and then the idea that she's sort of retired and gone on to motherhood and wanting to just to have a peaceful life, and now someone's come back and asked her to do one more job, and we'll see how that impacts her. That's exciting to me as well. We haven't read one yet that I'm not like, ooh, I could read that. Okay. This one is called Lone Women by Victor Laval, and it is a horror story, so you know I'm out on this one. As soon as you read the word horror, I'm done, but this might be something that is very intriguing to some of the rest of you, so of course I'm going to include it. The quick take on this one is, in this disquieting story, a woman fleeing past sins attempts to forge a new life, homesteading Montana's harsh plains. Now, it describes this book as experimental. It says things could get weird. This book is experimental. It focuses on social issues. There is graphic violence. It's a Western, and it has LGBTQ plus themes. Now, aside from horror, the word I like least when describing books is experimental. So this book is definitely not for me, but I want to read to you about it because I know that there's somebody out there that this is going to be exactly the right fit for. Adelaide Henry carries an enormous steamer trunk with her wherever she goes. It's locked at all times because when the trunk is opened, people around her start to disappear. The year is 1914 and Adelaide is in trouble. Her secret sin killed her parents and forced her to flee her hometown of Redondo, California in a hellfire rush, ready to make her way to Montana as a homesteader. Dragging the trunk with her at every stop, she will be one of the lone women taking advantage of the government's offer of free land for those who can cultivate it. Except that Adelaide isn't alone, and the secret she's tried so desperately to lock away might be the only thing keeping her alive. It doesn't sound like a lot of horror and scary, but I trust that it's labeled horror. I'm not even getting into it. So I think that sounds very interesting for those of you who are willing to read experimental horror. I, however, am not on that list, as you know. So Those are the 7 books that we have as choices for the month of March from the Book of the Month box. The London Seance Society, Weyward, The Soulmate, The Last Russian Doll, Rootless, The Adventures, I forgot what it was called. Hang on. The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi, and Lone Women. So there are some great choices there. I would love to hear what you recommend for me. Don't say the horror book. And I would love to hear what you might be interested in getting for the month of March. We have 7 choices, and I usually pick 1 or 2. I usually don't go for 3, but we'll see what happens this month. I would love to hear your opinions and love to hear what you think about these books. I'll be back later in the week to talk about some new releases for February and some new releases for March. And then the March Tournament of Books starts on March 8th, and we'll be talking about that every day. So I look forward to talking with you more and hope you have a great week. Thanks.